In this video, we are going to go over the parts of a chicken, and we're also going to talk about the differences between male and female chickens. Your teacher should have given you this worksheet, and hopefully you've had a chance to try and fill in the blanks by yourself. There is a list of words at the bottom that you can use once. And so we're going to go through and see how you did. Some of them are pretty easy and some of them are a little bit more difficult. So we're going to go through and talk about the different parts a little bit and get this picture labeled. So we're going to start at the top, work our way down to the bottom. So the first thing is up here at the top, and that is pointing to this part on the chicken. Now, if this were a color picture, this would be red. And this is what we call the comb of the chicken. All right, then we're going to move down over here, and this square points to the chicken's eye. And below it, that points to this part on the chicken. And this is the part when you're looking at the chicken, you may not really see it. They're kind of hard to see under the feathers, but this is the chicken's ear lobe. All right, now we'll move across here. This square points to this part of the chicken, which is the chicken's beak. And below that points to this part. And this part would also be red if this was a color picture. And this is what we call the chicken's wattles. Now the wattles and the comb are something we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail when we get to the parts, the differences between the roosters and the hens. All right, then moving below that, it points to this part on the chicken, the top of the chicken's wings. And it's just like on a human. At the top of your arm is your shoulder. And so the chicken also has a shoulder at the top of its wing. So the next square points to this part of the chicken, which is the chicken's breast. And then let me move this up a little bit. Next, we have, it points to this part, which is the top of the chicken's leg. And we call this the hock. So if you ever eat a chicken leg, it's the bigger part of the chicken leg that is the hock. All right, then below that, we have what we're going to call the chicken's toes. Now you may think claws, but the claws are actually the pointy nails on the ends of the toes. So this is actually pointing to the toes. And then this square points to the back, or the chicken's legs, which we call their shanks. All right. The last one, which word have we not used yet if you're keeping track? The last one points to the back part of the chicken, and this is their vent. All right, so hopefully you got most of those parts correct. Both male and female chickens are going to have all of these parts that we just went through on this worksheet. But now I'd like to talk in a little bit more detail about what is the difference between a male and a female chicken and what parts do they have that are different, or how can you tell them apart. So for that, I'm going to switch to these two pictures here. All right, and I'm going to lift this up so we can see a little bit better. So here we have a rooster and a hen. And when you look at those, what is the first thing that stands out as different to you? Well, from these pictures, the first thing that stands out to me is that the rooster is much more colorful than the hen. Now, part of that could be the breeds that are used in this picture. I mean, not all hens are white, and not all roosters have this coloring, depending on their breed. But it is usually the fact that your males in the birds and in animals the male is usually going to be more colorful than the female. And the reasoning for this is because that will attract prey. So out in the wild, if there is prey, they're going to tend to go towards the more colorful animal, the more colorful bird, in this case, the rooster. And so it's as protection for the hen. So the rooster will pull away the prey with their colorful, makes them more attractive to the prey. The other thing you might notice, and I said we would talk about these in more detail, was the comb and the wattle. So if you notice on the rooster, the comb and the wattle are bigger than they are on the hen. They both have a comb and wattle, but the rooster's is usually a little more red and larger than the females, than the hens. Another difference you might notice is in the back, in their tail feathers. On a male, the tail feathers tend to be a lot longer than the females. They also tend to be more pointed than the hens. The hens' tail feathers, their sickle feathers, are a little more rounded. The hens are more rounded than the roosters. And you'll also notice that they have a lot more feathers and things in their saddle and their back and their cape. Those are things that the female doesn't necessarily have. So that is another difference between the rooster and the hen. One more difference I'd like to point out is in their feet. So if you notice, they both have 4 toes. There's the male, there's the female. But the rooster also has this little thing on the back, which we call a spur. And that is another thing that they use for defense. They use that to protect themselves. And so that is another difference between the rooster and the hen. Now, a lot of people have already been asking me what I have in our baby chicks. Do we have roosters? Do we have hens? How many of both? And my answer to that is we don't know yet. You usually cannot tell the difference between roosters and hens, males and females, in baby chicks until they're about 6 to 8 weeks old. That's when they start to get their true feathers, and that's when their comb and their wattle start really developing. And so we won't really know what we have as far as males and females until those chicks get to be about 6 to 8 weeks old. All right, finally, I want to go over with you the growth stages of a chicken and what we call them. So, our babies, when they're born, are just chicks. And like I said, we don't really know if we have males or females yet. As they grow, this is going to be our female side, this is going to be our male side. As they grow, when they get to be teenagers, which is your 8 to 10 week period, we call a female a pullet. All right, so a female teenage chicken is a pullet. And then, of course, when they become an adult, we call them a hen. All right. On the male side, when they are teenagers, like I said, that's that 8 to 10 week period before they become a full adult, we call those cockerels. All right. And then when they reach adulthood, then they are called a rooster. All right. So that's just a little bit more about the different parts of a chicken and what we call them as they grow to adulthood. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask your teacher and have your teacher get those questions to me, and I'd be happy to try to answer them for you. in a future video, or I could just answer your teacher and she can get the answer back to you.